G'day and welcome to Garden Clinic TV. You know, you might remember when I planted these tomato seedlings, quite small, planted them deeply, extra root system, and the end result is the plants have actually gone berserk. They've really grown well, which is fantastic. Summer heat and of course lots of sunshine around. They're just starting to crop and I've taken off maybe half a dozen fruit. But in the process, these are really growing too well. They're growing very vigorously. I don't want to get them up at this height because I'll just feed the cockatoos and the other birds that come into the garden. I want to get a decent sort of crop. Now you remember there were 6 different varieties. This one at the back here is a beaut little Roma, but it's actually a cherry Roma. So it's got lots of fruit and they're in a small hand of fruit, flowers and fruit. But when you get them up this high, you start to lose the whole crop. Now, any gardener that's watching will very likely say, oh no, you do this and you do that. I've never seen a crop in a garden where everyone who grows tomatoes successfully has a different technique to grow them. So this is just my technique, okay? Now, it works for me. These ones at the front here are big tomatoes and they won't be able to carry the fruit on these little stems. So I'm actually going to prune those stems off, although I can actually, as I've started to do, tie them back and give them a bit of support. A lot of people talk about tomato vines. Well, this is what you end up with in some tomatoes. Little dwarf one, patio varieties, they're much more compact for a veranda. If you want to grow a taller tomato, then just make sure that you've either got the stakes or you have to be brutal. So when the flowers start to appear, as they have on this little one here, they'll turn to fruit. And I'm pruning them off at that point. For example, flowers and fruit starting to form on this one. There's more there, but I don't want that height. So I'll just prune those off and just keep the plant nice and compact. Now that one has got too tall, so I'm going to prune it right down and put some energy into some of the others. Oh, now here's one that's doing well. See, I can prune that one off. Flowers there, just starting to form, and I'll get fruit in another couple of weeks. And these really tall ones, just where you've got a spray of flowers, where you'll get a hand of fruit forming, prune them right down and keep them under control. Now, the other thing is that a lot of these tomatoes are really whippy and leggy. So get yourself a bit of string, and if need be, just tie them back. Keep plenty of sunshine happening, get the fruit exposed to the sunshine, and that way you'll have a really good crop. Now, they're not an attractive crop as far as the plants go, but when they start harvesting, you won't care what they look like because they'll produce a really good crop of tomatoes for you. So just keep the sun shining on those flowers, prune them back so that you actually are focusing the fruit and the energy into a smaller number of hands, and you'll get much, much better crop. Now, inside there, I'm starting to notice, well, let me just show you, a bit of this happening. Now, a lot of people think, oh, that's disease, and you start looking at fungicides and what, don't bother. Just prune it off. Now, in most cases, if it is a disease, you need to prune it off. Don't put it in your compost bin, put it in the green waste bin and get it off the site of your garden. Now, I did have one tomato, okay, so get rid of these. Now, it can also be a sign that your plants are just a little bit hungry. Now, because I've got 6 different varieties, they're all different in their needs for nutrition. Some are producing, 200 fruit. Others will produce 6 really big fruit, like Groslis and some of the larger fruiting tomatoes. So I'm actually going to give them another handful of fertilizer. The other thing I noticed, I had one tomato, and unfortunately I haven't got it anymore, but it was one large tomato and it had what we call blossom end rot, which is brown on the bottom. Now, for years and years and years, they said that it was irregular watering, whether it's in a pot or your tomatoes are in a garden bed like this. But in fact, it's calcium deficiency. So you need to keep the calcium, not so much lime, but dolomite up to your tomatoes. So, because that one fruit indicated to me that maybe there's a little bit of deficiency in the lime and calcium in the soil. So I've got a bit of dolomite here, and you just need to throw it into the soil and then water it in. like so, and that'll soon correct any deficiency you might have in lime. And you can do the fertiliser at the same time and then water it in. A little bit of a tip about watering tomatoes. A lot of people get the hose and they're up here. Don't do that. Keep the water down on the ground. Any aerial watering of your tomatoes is likely to encourage fungal diseases. So don't go watering up on the top here. Keep the water down low. And remember, tomatoes are about 90% water, that fruit. So keep the water up to them. Don't let them dry out at all. And keep those nasty leaves, keep them under control. Now, just looking in there, and I'll get you in there shortly and you can see it, there's a couple of big tomatoes starting to form. So they're on their way to the bigger ones, but these smaller ones, they harvest very, very quickly. They start producing. Fantastic crop tomatoes, because they will actually crop for about 3 months if you look after them. But you've got to do this interim care to keep the crop happening. Well, just before we finish our update on tomatoes, I wanted to mention, you know, there are a lot of insects that get in and trouble tomatoes, like the whitefly gets into beans, whitefly in these fellows here, but other insects as well. And before you start spraying with anything, even the organics, how about some natural herb controls like basil? Now, basil was researched back 30, 40 years ago to be really beneficial when you're growing tomatoes. I've got 6 basil plants. There's one of them just there. I've got 6 plants in amongst there. Now, I'm getting great pesto, but I'm also getting insect repelling just by the basil being there. So it's a really good, simple way to keep your tomatoes free of a lot of pests. Now, finally, if you really like this, well, give us a little like and then subscribe, and you'll be informed straight away when we're about to post another great story, a little video on what's happening in my garden. Thanks for watching. Good gardening. Have a great day.